Former president, that's former Nigerian President Olusegun Obasanjo, criticized President Bola Tinubu's leadership style, saying that he lacks a clear plan for the country. Now, Obasanjo emphasized leadership requires thoughtful planning and not impulsive declarations. He cited its own experience fighting colonialism and apartheid as an example of effective leadership. Now, Obasanjo also addressed Africa's food insecurity, blaming policy inconsistencies and discontinuity. He advocated for governments to create favorable business environments, allowing private sectors to drive economic growth. Now, so far, no response from Tinubu's camp has been reported. Now, joining me to discuss further on this, we have Charles Marindoti, convener, Social Rehabilitation, Grace and Support Initiative. Thank you so much, Charles, for joining us at this time.
Thanks, Lishan, for having me. Thank you, everybody at home.
All right, to begin with, Obasanjo stated that leadership is beyond opening the mouth and making a pronouncement. How valid are his concerns about President Tinubu and his leadership style?
Well, thanks for that question. You know, before we just limit that conversation to what the former president said, there were some things that were more aspirational and conceptual that we have to think about. And, you know, while he said that indirectly, we cannot put that in a vacuum. We have to remember that the former president was a former, head of state and military ruler, fought, colonialism, like he said. So, he deserves his stars, and we have to give him his props. However, we can say that the president is a little bit does not have the moral authority, in my opinion, for such distorted historicity, because I could remember that I think I was in SS3 then when we had a president who was in office who was talking about the deregulation of the downstream sector. And if I I think I'm forgetting his name right now. Oh, yes, it was President Olusegun Obasanjo. He was the one in office who was attempting to, deregulate the downstream sector. So with the former president said it has not been duly studied. Well, maybe he was saying he did not duly study it. But also another thing that is also very inaccurate is the fact that, there had been a PIA that had been passed in 2021 that had sunsetted, subsidy payment on oil to June of last year, and also it was not provided for in the budget. So if the former president said this was not well thought out, I think that will not be accurate. However, we cannot begrudge the former president. He's an 87-year-old man, and while he is very agile, and we can only pray to live as long as he has and be as strong as he has. Sterility is real, and it is something that we all might have to deal with. It is, something that afflicts the mind, and it comes with age. And so the president might have forgotten all these things. That was why he probably made those statements. And I feel like we shouldn't begrudge him over it. However, it is just factually inaccurate. President Bola Tinubu, in removing the subsidy, did not just subsidy on fuel, because that is little. This is something that I've been saying for months, and thank God the CBN governor came out, I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, to say it, that the subsidy on dollar is a lot much more than the subsidy on fuel. Let me give you an example, Deshaun. If I gave you $1,000 last year, you will not take it to CBN and collect 460,000 naira. You will take it to Aboki to collect 750,000 naira. Now, the dollar that we are talking about right now belongs to all of us. We earn it by selling food or selling agricultural products. It belongs to all of us. So why are we asking President Tinubu to do to our money what we ourselves would not do to our own money? Because this is essentially a giveaway to do it, and the pain is real. And I'm not going to dispute what is going to the transient thing that is going to cause, because it is regressive.
All right, Charles. Now, but does Obasanjo's criticism, reflect a broader governance concerns? Because some people seem to think that, his criticism stems from let's say, a vendetta that he has against President Tinubu, or envy of some sort. So does it reflect broader governance concerns or personal vendetta, given past criticisms of other Nigerian leaders that preceded him?
I will not try to get into the mind of the former president because it must be very convoluted, and I can't really tend to twist myself into pretzels to try to understand it. I mean, this was
I
a
actually
man
ask
who
because
you would
I
have thought.
remember he criticized him, even before, when he was campaigning for election to be president.
Thank you, Deshaun. That was where I was going. We are taught that the last act of President Obasanjo politically was the dismal and abysmal election of 2007. That even the beneficiary said was fraudulent, but in a way that only a President Obasanjo could do, he topped that by appealing to President Buhari to overthrow an election and impeach democracy. I mean, in a manner that is more akin to a neonate crying for his mother's, breast milk. It is definitely probably something personal. And it is also probably out of jealousy. This is a soldier, in my own opinion, that lacks the courage to do what a civilian had the courage to do. President Tinubu himself said it January last year after the former president endorsed Peter Obi that Obasanjo is jealous of me. And I will try to be specific that and say that President Obasanjo is jealous of President Tinubu's cojones. President Tinubu has a bigger cojones than President Obasanjo, and it is that comparison that is making the former president jealous, and that is why you will not expect him to, give him any props. You expect him to be a little bit critical and say some statements that might be totally inaccurate. But like I said, we can't begrudge him. He's an 87-year-old man.
Okay. Now, let's consider Obasanjo's experience, as military head of state, and, his experience also fighting the colonialism and apartheid. Now, what leadership qualities did Obasanjo exhibit during his presidency that you think Tinubu could emulate?
Well, I would hope and pray that President Bola Tinubu does not in any way, shape, or form try to emulate anything that came out of President Obasanjo's leadership in Nigeria. I mean, I always say that one of the greatest mistakes, looking back at it, was the failure to elect His Royal Majesty Olufalaye in 1999, because a lot of these structural adjustments that we are trying to make right now would have been done then when we had the favor of the world. We have just transitioned from military to democracy, and the whole world was trying to embrace us into freedom. Then Nigeria was a nation with prospects. Now Nigeria is a nation with suspects, because everybody has, the history of corruption, the degradation of democracy. I mean, the former president even had the chutzpah to say that if he wanted a third term, that he would have gotten it. I mean, that is so undemocratic, and it is not surprising. He was a military man, and they said old soldier never dies, right? So he probably still has all this authoritarian. I mean, this was the man who was fighting his vice president in Jabi Market. You can see the leadership skill that President Tinubu has brought to bear in Nigeria, resolving political problems, situations from, a little bit badly behaving politicians all across the country. This man is trying to invest in the future of Nigeria. There's going to be this transient thing, but the future is more important. We cannot keep on giving money to the rich. And please, let me make this point. Look at the Dangote refinery, very important. Cost about 20 billion. He got it at the official exchange rate. If he had gone to Aboki, which is what 20 million Nigerians would have done if they needed $1,000, he would have gotten about just $12 billion. That is to say, the Nigerian government gave Dangote $8 billion without getting an equity for the Nigerian people. That is what was happening with all these subsidies. And this is what President Tinubu is trying to do. It is painful, and he is even putting the stability of his own administration at risk. But this shows you that the man is not thinking about 2027, but he's thinking about 2087. He's thinking way into the future. I said it during the election that if we don't elect President Tinubu, it will take about 30 years for us to get to where we were last year, because all these things needed to go so that we can take the money from the rich and start investing in our poor, in our education, in our roads, in things that will give us the better quality of life. And we know these things take time. If you put cement today, it will take time to harden. So before you train doctors, before you train teachers, before you build roads that will give you an eye and give you the money to invest in health insurance so that you can have access to it and have comfort and better quality of life, it will take time. But we have to first stop, hemorrhaging resources into the hands of the few and then use that resources for all of us. Now, I am not saying President Tinubu's administration is without criticism. I will write a PhD level thesis on how I can criticize President Tinubu's management of the fallout of the pain that has resulted from the subsidy removal. And in talking about pain, I know a lot of Nigerians detest the president right now. They call him T-Pain and all of that. And this thing is not surprising because there was a man called Plato who wrote about it about 400 years even before Christ was born in his allegory of the cave. And if you can allow me, he essentially spoke about, education and enlightenment and ignorance. And then also he spoke about how if you try to make change, people are always resistant to it. He spoke about cavemen who were chained to a cave facing the wall, whereby their perception of reality was the shadows in front of them. Now, if you free one of them, let them out, they will realize the fact of life, of the shadows. If they try to flee their fellow cavemen, those fellow cavemen will kill them. They will resist it. That is what is happening in Nigeria right now. And we have to persevere and keep educating Nigeria and plead with them. I feel like President Tinubu definitely needs to do more. Minimum wage needs to be paid. Subsidies need to be put into critical areas like transportation for agricultural products. Give subsidies to farmers who are making food. You can give subsidies to people who are doing transportation. You can liberalize some of your policies that are punishing food importation, putting 70% import duty on flour when Nigerians cannot eat bread, putting import duty on rice when we don't have rice to eat, and then use the money that you are making to invest in agriculture because we have cheap labor, and you say invest in the infrastructure that will make the prices of food in Nigeria cheap. Our cheap labor and weak currency should make our products the most competitive in the world.
Charles, you actually said quite, a lot. You've talked about, leadership, kind of leadership that we actually need in Nigeria. You've talked about institutional reforms. You've talked about, a lot of things. But we know that this administration has actually said that there's no going back on their policies. Now, but do you think it's too late for President Tinubu to consider, some corrective actions, in order to address some of Nigerians' concerns? And I'm talking about when it comes to fuel subsidy removal, especially.
No, there is no need to take corrective actions to bring back subsidy. No, we can take corrective actions to fix our transportation system so that people have access to public transport. And if the common man can have access to public transport at a cheap price that is affordable to him, when Odjus or Kalu or Peter Obi, all of them want to fly their private jets, they will go and buy fuel without having the government subsidy on it. Because when you look at fuel subsidy, fuel is food for machine. Food is food for human beings. Rich men have more machines than the poor man. Someone living in one room apartment with his whole family is not consuming so much fuel. So when you put subsidy on fuel, who are you really benefiting? Between me and you, Deshaun, if we have subsidy on alcohol, I'll probably be benefiting more from that subsidy than you because I drink and I don't know how much you drink. But that is what I'm trying to say in terms of, that's just on a lighter note, but that's what I'm trying to say in terms of
but you talk about, the rich, using machines. How come the poor are being affected?
Yes, the poor are being affected because the impact is regressive. Let me give a little bit of an example. If I have 10 million naira and you have 1,000 naira, and we both lose 50% of our money because of subsidy removal or whatever, you would have lost 500 naira. I would have lost 500,000 naira. That is 100,000 times more than 1,000 times more than what you have lost. So this is why the poor are feeling the pain, because it is regressive in the impact, but on the long run, it is going to benefit them. That is why I am talking about all these targeted subsidies that can really help the poor cushion it. I mean, I would also criticize the president's rice sharing policy. It is like you have a headache, go and take rice. Malaria, go and take rice. You are having diarrhea, go and take rice.
That
is not it. You can come up with it yes, you can come up with intelligent ways whereby you can have these things that will be like a social security system where people can ask for it and they can go to their regular rice seller and buy rice for cheap because government has put subsidy on those rice in the market that everybody has access to, as opposed to be sharing rice to politicians who some might keep for their own personal gain. I'm not saying that's what they are doing, but it's a possibility and it is not going to be equitable. A lot of people are not going to see it. But if government reduces the policy, why will you be taxing people for food? This was what caused the American Revolution that made the American break away from the UK. Go and read about the Boston Tea Party. They put tax on tea. You cannot be putting taxes on food when your people cannot eat food. You can't be doing it. These are things that can help the Nigerian people, survive this period of pain, and then we get to a place whereby we are productive. The value of the naira is not our problem. Our problem is our income. We don't make dollar. We earn it. So our income is what is problematic. The chair I'm sitting on right now was made in
but do you
Vietnam.
think the
It could have
BRICS,
been made
the
in
BRICS
Nigeria.
partnering with Nigeria, right now would actually help, especially looking at the fact that they're partnering on de-dollarization of, the naira? Will it help?
I mean, the whole thing about are you talking about the BRICS situation?
Yeah, I'm talking about BRICS.
I,
They've partnered
to
with
me, I think BRICS is
yeah, please go ahead.
yeah, they are trying to partner with BRICS, but in my own personal opinion, I think it's just a phantom dream at an attempt that to rewrite the world order. But I think it's going to fail because one of the things that is most important in politics and in business is trust. So look at the members of BRICS. Do they trust each other? Does the Chinese trust do they trust the Russians? Do they trust the Indians? The reason why the whole world chose the United States is because they trust the United States not to cheat on their currency. We all know that China has been accused of cheating on their currency, reducing the value of their currency so that their prices are very competitive in the world market. So will you go and buy BRICS currency and then because Russia needs to do something they make, and if you want to do that, you are just changing your dependence on a trusted and stable system to one that just one man can decide to do whatever with. So they can keep on trying. I don't think it's going to go anywhere because a lot of the things that we need, technology and all these things still come from the West.
So how
import
then,
control. There are so many things. So they can keep on BRICS.
All right, there seems to be, a confusion, especially when it comes to, balancing economic growth and also the welfare of Nigerians. So what adjustments can Tinubu consider to, balance these two, addressing the people's concern? Because whatever it is that comes up at the top ends up affecting those below. They feel the pain more.
Yeah, you're very right. They feel the pain more, and it's so sad. And there are so many things that we can do. I feel like we need to definitely restructure so that we can have 36 people trying to grow the economy of this country as opposed to one. We cannot have a system where the federal government takes almost 60% of the resources and the local governments are holding on to shreds, and the federal and state governments too. We also need to ensure that we have security. One of the main problems in Nigeria is food. A hungry man is an angry man. Yoruba will say, when hunger leaves poverty, the poverty is considered resolved. But for us to be able to grow food, we need security. They've been killing a lot of bandit leaders, but that does not make people secure. We are still having kidnappings that are not even being announced of. When the medical students were kidnapped in Benue, there was a family that was kidnapped in Ondo State that never got the news, and they killed the father, and we've not heard that they released the mother. So these are things that affect the confidence of the farmers. My sister was telling me of a milk producing area in saying whereby she works in milk production, whereby they went to try and collect milk, and they saw that they burnt the whole villages and all of them at night, and they couldn't find them. These are things that are affecting the security and the productivity of Nigeria. And if the president can please follow up with what he has believed in all his life and not let the power that he has attained corrupt him to not make him want to relinquish the power, so that the communities can protect themselves. The communities want to protect themselves. You protect your house, you clock you put security camera, you defend your house. Let the communities also defend themselves, and then the federal government to support them. That would be a lot more effective. And this is one thing that the former President Olusegun Obasanjo
but then knowing that, for
advocated for,
example,
that I'm also in support of.
Charles, knowing that, for example, the administration comes out to say that the poor man has to choose between paying 1,000 naira for fuel or paying 200 naira for a CNG. So the poor man has to choose because there's no way that the fuel price is actually reducing. It might even end up increasing. You get what do we do in that case? What do we do in that case?
Deshaun, I think that that statement was so cavalier and irresponsible of the administration, especially because that was coming off of a disaster where there was an explosion.
Too. We've been hearing a lot of such statements.
Yes, but that particular statement came after there was an explosion with a CNG converted car.
Let's not also forget the fact that it takes a lot to even convert your car to CNGs, and that's why there are lots of grants that are given to public car owners, those who run transportation services and all that. But what about the common man? A man that depends on his car to take him to and from work.
Exactly. That is why I mentioned it the other time. The most important, the most effective way is to fix our public transportation system and allow the local community, the local government to handle it. In where I am, the city controls the buses so that they can help the poor man to go from point A to point B for cheap. We have a situation in Nigeria right now where if you want to bring a bus that will carry maybe a lot of people, the government will charge you about between 20 to 40 to 50% import duty on a car that you want to use to make transportation cheap. We have so many of those trade policies. We want to think about it. We want to build good roads so that people can move. We are going to collect loans to build roads, but the materials that we need to build roads, like metal and all of that, when we bring it in, we put import duty on it. So let's say 20%. So now that is 20% extra that we will be paying interest on, that we would not have needed to pay if we didn't have all this, punitive import duty that is crippling the economy and our growth. So these are the solution to that poor man thing and the solution to our energy, to the fuel subsidy thing is public transportation. Allow people to bring in buses that can move people in numbers, empower the local government so that they can control these things and allow people to transport themselves for cheap. If you go to New York, I fly a lot across the country for work most times. Whenever I go to New York, I don't feel the need to rent a car because there's even no space. So I take public transport, take train, take buses. Those are cheaper. And Nigeria is also in that situation whereby we are very densely populated because our landmass is not so big and we have a lot of people in there. So if we have public transportation, you can move people in hundreds from point A to point B. These are the things that the government should do to allow the local government, the state governments to control these buses. The federal government cannot be controlling it. I support the president, but I was ashamed when I saw him stand in front of 30 CNG buses. How many people would that transport? It is not something it is something that is a good in terms of the energy mix, but it's not the panacea to the problem. The panacea to the problem is to get out, in my opinion, insane, banal policies that is punishing the growth and allow people to bring in buses, bring in cars, fuel-efficient cars, so that we can move people in numbers from point A to point B, and the economy will keep on growing. That is the solution, not CNG. CNG is a good thing for the energy mix. If we put too much people on the CNG itself, what volume of gas are we making? Are we not going to now increase the demand and perhaps if our supply does not meet it? CNG is not something that you can easily just change. So how many CNG fuel stations are available? Do you want to drive from Lagos to Akure and then have to tow your car back from Lagos to Akure to Lagos so you can fill your CNG tank? We don't have the infrastructure yet. Even if you want to transition all cars into CNG, it will take like maybe 10 years or 5 at least. So this is not something that will be a magic pill. It is just a good thing for the energy mix. So we should not be saying it as if it is possible. Even if they did the math, the number of time that it takes one person to convert the CNG cars and the number of applicants that can do it, you will see that you are still not going to be able to convert significant amount of cars in Nigeria to change over a long period of time. You can do it. You can use ChatGPT even if you don't want to calculate it. So so the only solution is public transportation. Let us have CNG powered public transportation, allow a lot of buses to be imported into Nigeria by the communities, by the local governments, and control the movement of their people. And the people will not talk. The people will grow. Then we invest in their education, because it is education that can grow the economy. I did this math one time. If we dug out all the fuel that we have in our reserve and sold it in a day and shared the money within Nigerians, everybody will probably get about maybe 150,000 naira each. So is that what you want to spend for how many days? So the only way we can grow our economy is to educate our people, train them, so that we don't have to be exporting goods and importing furniture.
Okay.
So that we can be making the furniture in Nigeria and exporting.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Charles Marindotti, for joining us on the conversation and speaking on this.
Thank you very much for having me.